Oh, 6. Hopefully I'll get this done by 5 o'clock, 5:30. All right, so let's go to, again, just for those of you who want to review this a little bit more, go over what we did in class. So identify the transformations that happen here. So this one, think if you can do the rules, right? So if I do this, especially the rotations, allow me to do this. So if I take this, copy, let me take it to this page. Paste. No, that's not it. Sorry. Let's go here. Let's go here. Let's go here. So this one, if I can do this, and too bad. Right. So imagine I take this guy here. Right. Let me just make it a little bigger. Right there. So rotate this. Clockwise or counterclockwise, but let's say if I rotate this around this fixed point right here, right? So this is going to travel. Right? This is the hard part. This is going to travel. All right, so I gotta move it around. Actually, let me take the short way. Why am I going that way? So I'm gonna move it around, right? And then I also have to make it go like this as it's moving around. So imagine, right? Yeah, and then that's not the best way of doing this. Right, so it's rotating around the center. I'm going to rotate around the center. Come on. Right? And it ends up being here after 9-degree rotation. So it's traveling this way. Well, I could travel the other way, but that's just a long way of traveling. Right? So this shape started traveling like that and rotating as it goes, right? Until it reaches a 90-degree rotation. Right? So it's traveling this way. Right? So it's definitely a rotation. I don't know if that was worth doing it. So this is definitely a rotation. If you took the shortcut and went this way, if you look at P, look, P is here, P prime is here, so we move one axis. Look at Q. Q is in quadrant 2, and then Q prime is in quadrant 3, so that's a hint that the points travel one quadrant over. So look at point I is in quadrant 3, now it's quadrant 4, so point I also travel one quadrant over. So everybody travel one quadrant over in the counterclockwise direction, and if they travel one quadrant over, it's just a 90-degree rotation counterclockwise. This one, well, this one, let me do this. It literally did this. So imagine that's the original NUML. It was here, it went to the left, and then it went down. That's all it did. Okay, so definitely this one. See, it's a translation, same direction, same shape, right? So he moved this way, and then he moved down. So it's definitely a translation. This one, again, you can already start guessing that it's a rotation. Notice that it's direction, right? It's not pointing. So imagine your pencil, right? So if you imagine your pencil's pointing up right now, where is it pointing now? Pointing this way. So that arrow went from this to this. P and L, P and I should say, are in quadrant 2. They went from quadrant 2 to quadrant 3. Right? So that definitely is counterclockwise rotation of how much? 90 degrees. Okay. Next one, these two. Hopefully you can definitely see it's a reflection, right? It's a reflection. And it's a reflection, and we gotta be specific over who, over in this case, the y-axis. So here's our line of reflection. And we have this shape here, V, reflected over here. Notice that every single point above the x-axis is reflected down here under the x-axis, and they're equally distant from the line of reflection. This one is a rotation, right? So imagine the arrow is pointing this way. It is now pointing down. So rotation, again, counterclockwise, and how many degrees? 9 degrees. Here's our original, point W, B, and G. It went up, and then went left, or it went left first, and then it went up, as you choose. And this is obviously a translation. Okay. Another rotation, my God. Okay, and this rotation here, again, look at point M, pick a point. Point M is in quadrant 1. It is now in quadrant 2, so it went one quadrant over, so that's just simply a 90-degree rotation. Which way? Well, clockwise. Sorry, counterclockwise. Or, if you want to go the long way, yes. It's possible that this triangle rotated this way. It's clockwise, but it went 90, 180, 270 degrees clockwise. Take the shortcut. This one, angel eyes, angel wings, sorry. Where's my line of reflection? The red line. It's not the y-axis because it's just the red line right now, or the blue line. Right, that's the line of reflection. So it's a vertical reflection over the, well, let's call it the y-axis, or before the red line. Okay. Bottom two, sequence. The moment you see the word sequence, it's two or more transformations that took the original to the image. So in this case here, A and B, how did A get to B? Now, if you did a single transformation, it would be one rotation. One rotation, 180 degrees, took this triangle A here. But they're not asking for one transformation, they're asking for sequence, meaning one following the other, right? So you can always, and nothing ever stops you on the quiz, to actually try it out. Right, so let me just make this a little bigger. No, I can't. Yeah. So if I were this, if we're taking a quiz, you can say, well, let me try a reflection from here. Let's pick these 3 points. Right, let's reflect it over this way. Or you could have said, hey, let me reflect it over the x-axis. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to pick the easy one. So, I have my glasses. Take care of your eyes. So this one here would be 1, 2, okay, so, right, that's this point. And let's call me, I'm going to call this C. And if they don't have letters, put letters. So this is point E. Call it E prime. Point C is here, C prime, and point D prime would be right at the top of the 5. Okay, here we go. And now notice that C prime is over there. How do I get this triangle to become this triangle? Oh, definitely a reflection, right? Because this would be C double prime. D double prime, and this would be E double prime, because that's the second image, right? So, and let me just confirm, make sure that point E is 2 units away from the line of reflection, which is the x-axis, right? Here's my mirror. Point E is 2 units away, and E prime should also be 2 units away if you count. And notice that this one, every 2 boxes, so if this is 0, this is 1. Every 2 boxes is 1 unit, right? So, yeah, so that. This was actually a reflection and a reflection, right? A reflection and another reflection. So, I chose to go over the y-axis and then over the x-axis. You could have gone this way if you wanted to, right? If you wanted to, you could have reflected over here, and then from here, reflected over here. That would have been just fine. This one, Yeah, it could be. This one could be tricky. So we're going from this lighter purple to this darker purple triangle. Now it's not just one reflection, because if it was just a single reflection, let me put the line of reflection here, right? Our mirror. If that was a single reflection, the triangle should be here. Okay, that's where it should be, but it's not. It's literally 1 unit away here. So what can happen is that you can reflect it, right? So if you took this, what color is this? Light purple, and reflect it on the other side, you get this 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. So if you reflect it over the y-axis, you will get this. But what is it that you need to know? Well, you need to now shift 1 over to the right. So it's a reflection and then a translation. Okay. This one here, well, looks like the triangle's upside down. Can you rotate this? Well, you could rotate this. No, I don't think we can, because we rotate point S. So if I rotate this 180 degrees, actually 90 degrees, no, that's not going to work. But because imagine this line over here is pointing up like that. If I rotate this 90 degrees, counterclockwise, right, it's now going to be like this. But that wouldn't work. Now, if I reflect this, so let's take point S, which is 4 units away. Let's see if that works. Oh, I can reflect it. So point S, I can, no, can I? Well, let's reflect point S this way. S prime. Point T would be at 5, right? And point U would be here. So if I reflect this, I'm trying to figure out, if I reflect it, it looks like this. So if I do a reflection, I'm obviously not done. Then I will have to shift this, right? Slide this over this way. And then we have to move, slide right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units, and then down how many units? We would go down 1, down 2 units. Okay, so reflection and then translation. This one, I think I had this on the previous one. Let me go back. I'm going to try to do what I did in the previous. That didn't work out too nice. But I want you to take a look at this. I broke it up into 2 pieces. Let me rotate this 180 degrees. So if I rotate this 180 degrees, oops, it goes to this way. Now notice that it's not what we want. So it's definitely not a rotation. So let me go back. Right, let me go back. This is the original right here. Right, that's right. Talking about this guy. So I rotated it, and then again. So let me take this guy again. Take that guy, the triangle. Let's see if I rotate 180 degrees. Well, if I rotate 90, that didn't help. Rotate 180. Also didn't help, because notice that it's not, the diagonal here is going down and the diagonal here is going up. Think about slope, right? One has a negative slope, the other one has a positive slope. They don't even look alike. So it's definitely no rotation here. What if I did a reflection? If I take this and reflect it down here. Alright, so let's take this guy. So let me go back to the big one here. Let's take this guy and reflect it over the x-axis. So here's my mirror, my line of reflection. So let's count. Point A is 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Here would be point A prime. B is the same thing, B prime, and C would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Point C. Ooh, now they look the same. So reflection from here to here over the x-axis. And then how do I get this triangle to go there? It's just a translation, right? A slide, however many units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units. Next one. Alright. So we're going to take the point 4, -3 and rotate. So if you rotate let me just write quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Positive, positive. This is positive, sorry. Yeah. Negative, positive. Quadrant 3 is negative, negative, and quadrant 4 is positive. So if you rotate -4, -3 at this point right here, 180 degrees, it's going to travel 9 degrees, which is one quadrant, and another 9 degrees, which is the second quadrant. So 90 plus 90 is 180. So -4, -3 lands in quadrant 1. Right? So if we know that, it's half the battle. So landing in quadrant 1, I know the coordinates are going to be positive. So both are going to be positive. So it's going to be positive something, it's positive something. So -4, -3. So when you write -4, right? I'm going to switch once, it becomes, you can forget the signs. Signs are not important. 4, -3, so let's, becomes 3/4, right? Because that's 9 degrees. And you switch again, it becomes 4/4. So we can write 4/3. And because it lands in quadrant 1, it's right here. 4/3. That would be this guy. What if we did rotate the point 4, -3 counterclockwise? So let me change colors. Counterclockwise means we go in this direction. For 4, -3 is going to travel one quadrant over. It's going to go from quadrant 3 to quadrant 4. So it's going to land over here in quadrant 4. So it's going to land in quadrant 4 where it's going to be positive, negative. So what happens to -4, -3? Well, if we get the signs and just switch the numbers, it becomes 3, 4. And in quadrant 4, who is negative? The second number is negative. So it's going to be positive 3, negative 4. So positive 3, negative 4, which is positive 3. Right, you switch once, this is just 90 degrees, and you move one quadrant over in the direction that is mentioned. Alright, so this one, reflect the point 4, -3 over the y-axis. Okay, so we're going to go from, so remember this is the x, the y. So we're going to go from here to here. Okay, so because we don't have to learn the rules, just gotta count. The distance -4, -3 is from the y-axis, and you can count 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 units away, so its image on the other side of the y-axis should be 4 units away. 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's right. So if you flip it over, it becomes 4, -3. Right? Everybody okay with that? Now we gotta move it 4 to the right and 2 down. So let's go 4 to the right. Take this point 4 right. 1, oops, change colors. So it's going to go from there. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be over here, and then 2 down. 1, 2. So here it's new location. Final location. So if you move 4 units right, you are, first of all, you were at 4, right? You were at 4. So if you go 2 to the right, so here was my point, 4, -3. Right, this represents the x coordinate and the y coordinate. If you think about it, you're standing on the x, right, on the number line, on the x at 4. And if you go 2 right, you end up at 6. You are at -3, so on the y-axis, think about you're on the -3. You're in the -3rd floor, right? Imagine you're underground, negative third floor, and you're taking the elevator 2 floors down from there. So if you're negative 3 and you go down 2 floors, you're now at negative 3 floors. So this is our final location. Rotate the image. Oh, so I'm gonna take, and I know we did X and Y axis, X and Y axis, but another thing you can do, right, is this. Take this over here. No, here, no, here. Right, so take that and rotate 90 degrees. So I want to show you what first happens. So here's an arrow. Let me create an arrow. Right, and you say rotate that 90 degrees, Mr. Cho. Well, 90 degrees. Rotate that, it becomes this after 90 degree rotation. And then you say rotate again 90 degrees. From there, the arrow points down. That's 90 degrees. If you tell me to rotate that again 90 degrees, the arrow points this way. Change colors. This is what happens after 90 degree rotation. This is what happens when you say, hey, go another 90 or 180. So from the beginning, right, from the beginning position, that was 180, and then there was one more, and you say, hey, rotate again, another 90, right, another 90 degrees. If I rotate another 90 from there, I am now going to be right, so same thing with the triangle. So you can make a little arrow if you want here. Here, let me make the arrow. Right. 20 minutes. So what did it say? It said rotate 90 degrees clockwise. Okay. So if I take, right, so this triangle, and I want to rotate 90 degrees clockwise. I'm going to put an arrow here, right, to mimic what we did over here. So here's my arrow. And it's going to say 90 degree clockwise. So we're going to, first of all, be rotating this direction and 90 degrees. So let's rotate 90 degrees. So if the arrow is not pointing up, right, after 90 degree rotation, it should be pointing this way, like this. So our final image is going to look like that. Okay. So now that we know what it's going to look like, let's enlist the help of the X and Y axis. It's not asking you for any points, right? It's not asking for any points. I just want to practice that. So I'm going to draw the Y axis. Here's the Y axis and here's the X axis. Right, so we're rotating against that point P. So this is just to help you. It's not asking you for points. It's just saying rotate. So you could literally take your paper and just rotate it. But I'll take this as a chance to practice the points. So if you had, and notice that there are no points, so we're going to call this A, B, and C. Point A, if you count, is 1, 2, 3, is -3, and 1, 2, 3, and 3. Point B is 1, 2, 3, -3 to the right, and 0. Point C is -1 to the right, and no 1. So these are my original points. And we'll just confirm, what is this? Rotate clockwise. 90. So we're rotating that way. 90. So if you rotate these, A prime, switch the number. So A is in quadrant 2. Clockwise, sorry, we're going clockwise. Yeah, so we're going this way, this direction. So A is in quadrant 2. It is now going to go quadrant 1. If you switch 3 and 3, it becomes 3 and 3. But in quadrant 1, everybody is positive. B, so that's A prime. B prime. B prime is going to go from this axis to this axis, to the Y axis. It was -3 and 0. If you switch once, it becomes 0 and 3. And notice that here, everybody's positive on the y-axis. So 0 and 3 would be 1, 2, 3. Well, let me plot the other one. So this is B prime. A prime was 3 and 3. And then C prime, again, C prime is C is -1, 0. If you switch, it's going to be 1 and 0. And if you connect, it's exactly that picture that we have when we rotate it, right? So, oh, back here, let me take that. Right, so if you took this, and you just literally took your paper and rotated 90 degrees, look, there. Isn't that a triangle? Isn't that this triangle? Oh, same exact. Right? Oh, we just did a little practice with points. Last one, second one. Again, rotate this 180 degrees. Well, it's not asking you for any points. Let me say that again. It's not asking. So to my 2 viewers who are watching this, it says rotate this 180 degrees. Well, and again, let's think about the arrow again, right? So if this is here, and you said this show rotate 100 degrees, it'd be 90, right? Plus 90 degrees, which leads me to here. And then you said plus another 90 degrees, which will lead me to here. So this guy here, this arrow, right? So it's got to pretend it's pointing up. But after 180 degrees, let's rotate this 180 degrees. Let me take a picture. Right, so let's take this guy and rotate this 180 degrees. Here's the arrow, that's 90. Right, that's 90. Right, and now let me go back. So this was the original, right? So let me rotate. It's going to be 90 degrees plus another 90. Where's the arrow pointing now? After 180 degrees, it's pointing down. So there, that would have been your answer. Just rotate the paper. All right. Now I'm going to leave this answer in the corner, and I'm going to take advantage, like I said, we're going to play with some points. So let me draw this, and draw this, and call it the X and Y axis. Oops. Right, Y, X, make sure you put arrows. All right, so, and again, we can call point, let's call it VWX, point V, where's point V? -1, sorry. 1, -1, point X is 1, comma, -3, and point W is 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, comma, -1. So we're going to rotate these 180. So V, if they're going to rotate 1, 2, 3, oops, 3, 4. So all these points are in quadrant 4. If they rotate 180 degrees, each of these points, or every single point, are going to travel 2 quadrants. That's 90 degrees plus another 90. So they will all end up in quadrant 2. And in quadrant 2, it's going to be negative, positive. So 1 and -1, if you switch 1 and -1, it becomes 1 and 1, right? And you switch 1 and 1, it becomes 1 and 1. So it's going to be 1 and 1, but in quadrant 2, X is negative. X, if you look at X, is 1, -3, forget the signs. Switch 1 and 3, becomes 3 and 1, switch again, right? Because that's 90 degrees, 90 degrees. So it's now 1 and 3, but -1 and 3. 4, -1. Switch becomes 1 and 4, switch again becomes 4 and 1. So it becomes the same number, except that it's -4 and 1. So let's plot this. V is -1 and 1 right here. V prime, I should say. Prime. X is -1 and 3. X prime, sorry. And W prime. 1, 2, 3, 4, -4 and 1. Now take a look at this rotation over here that we did just by turning the paper around, and our answer. Exactly the same. Oh, small. Right? Exactly the same. Right? That's it. That's really it.
I think. Wait, double check.
Yeah, that's it.